The question has been asked many times by a lot of people, in the sense that you look at the activities of ISIS, and the question that exists is that you want to clarify how I'm not going to the crazy things right now. I'm just going to say that the autocratic methodology in terms of their portrayal of religion, how does it actually connect to a Torah understanding of religion? Now, the first time that question was really presented to me was really not in terms of ISIS, but in terms of Ayatollah Khomeini. Ayatollah Khomeini was the guy, or the religious head, who sparked the Iranian Revolution that overthrew the Shah in the 1970s. And when Khomeini came to power, Iran became an Islamic state. And immediately with the coming of an Islamic state, it became autocratic, and it channeled a lot of democracy. There was issues on women's rights and things of that nature. And I had a friend of mine who, a friend from New York, I was visiting him, and he said to me something to the extent that halavai, there were rabbanim like Khomeini. Okay? What we need is a rabbi like Khomeini, who's strong, takes stands, and calls a spade, and creates a halachic autocracy. And I basically responded to him, well, we don't have that in Eretz Yisrael, but he would say, yeah, that's what we need. And I basically said to him, Chas v'shalom, that is not really what I believe Torah perceives in its leadership.
Wasn't it left over? Left.
Well, that's something that's. But the fact is that there's a perception, and if people think about this in terms of when they talk about a dati state, that in the level, oh yeah, we like a dati state, but we don't want them doing this for people who do Machal Shabbos, and we don't want this, we don't want this. And the fact is that in many ways, at the same time that we like Eretz Yisrael to observe certain aspects of Torah and mitzvahs, the fact is that there's a certain amount of acceptance that Eretz Yisrael has an allegiance to Western values, such as freedom of religion, freedom of speech, democracy, and so forth. But the fact is the question emerges, how does that connect to Torah? So a lot of people say, hey, yeah, right, we want to have a dati state, but really we don't, because then we won't have democracy. But the point is that really the question emerges, what is the Torah attitude toward the Western values that we cherish in democracies? And at the same time, what does that mean in terms of a view of religion which is autocratic, which says, it's my way or the highway? Which on the surface, sort of people think that that's true, that's even from Torah, but really it's not. But the fact is I would contend that that view of religion is really not the Torah view of religion. And there is a Torah concept of things such as freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and stuff like that. And the fact is that these values do have a place within a Torah society. And therefore, as an extension, we would not want a rabbi like Khomeini, and we would not, even if we got the upper hand in Eretz Yisrael and talked about this, about Eretz Yisrael being a dati state, it would not be in the sense of an imposing religious state or theocracy as we would perceive happening in the radical Muslim places.
But isn't that what King Hezekiah did? He said those who don't go to the study hall, like he threatened almost like death to those who don't go to study.
So the argument that exists is
and everyone was righteous.
Let's look back in history. The point is that so you can start looking back in history and we say, listen, we can look back in history and see how the nation historically took care of situations. So, for example, ISIS walks into a place and says, "We're going to wipe out the Zoroastrians." Now, Zoroastrians most likely are of the Avodah Zarah because they believe in two gods. Zoroastrianism is a belief in a good God and a bad God. And the fact is that clearly would be a Avodah Zarah. So the point is that Islam, which basically prides itself on being the pure monotheistic religion, basically says we're not going to tolerate Avodah Zarah. So people would sit there and say, well, weren't we the same way? Right? When Yeshua walked into Eretz Yisrael, what did he basically tell the nations? The Shiva Amimim. They had three choices. What were their three choices? Either you accept the Shem B'nai Noach and let you stay, you leave now, or we'll wipe you out. Right? So that seems to be pretty much of a pretty autocratic religious perspective. Right? And the fact is okay, we're not going to say you have to convert to Judaism, but you do have to follow Shem B'nai Noach. So the point is we're imposing religion on them. Where Yeshua basically imposed religion on them.
Were they second
or
class?
What?
Were they second class?
As that gets to the whole issue where as followers of the Shem B'nai Noach in Eretz Yisrael, they would be there's a question, a technical issue of whether they would be Geri Toshav enough, but if they accepted it would be for Bezdin to follow Shem B'nai Noach to be Geri Toshav. And the fact is that Geri Toshav does have somewhat of a secondary status, although his status is pretty powerful. According to the Ramban, the Jewish nation has the same obligations in terms of tzedakah and chesed and all those things towards Geri Toshav, toward living in Eretz Yisrael. But the fact is at the same point in time that they mostly would be able to have some land, and that gets an issue in terms of whether they'd be able to actually own land. Most likely, they could, they have some right to own land according to some people and so forth. But the fact is they're still not Jews. Therefore, they're not in the government. They're not making decisions. So there's somewhat of second-class status, but they can always be Megayer and therefore enter into the Jewish people. But the fact is that that's the case you're mentioning, Chizkiyahu, and the point is these are very legitimate questions. Okay, so that's one thing you have to deal with. Okay, so what was the only thing that's one thing you have to do. So historically, we do have sources in terms of Tanakh that seem to imply that Judaism is not very tolerant, and pretty strongly, it's my way or the highway, right? So the point is that how can we now argue for tolerance? Okay. Now the truth is since Tanakh times, we don't really see a Jewish nation doing that. There's one case in history, in the time. In the there was one, the Chazarim converted to Judaism through their own desire, but there was one case that seems to imply the Jews actually forced people to convert to Judaism, and that was in the time of the Hashmonaim dynasty, and there was one time where they did this, and in that time that they did this, the one thing they did was there were some problems there, and supposedly Herod was a descendant of one of those people converted. But generally, we don't have a history of Jews actually ever forcing anyone to convert, and so forth and so forth. You know, in documented history times outside of Tanakh. And of course, after the Churban, Jews never really pushed their religion. And there's a whole issue in terms of our argument about Jews not pushing conversion and so forth and so forth. The truth is, during the Middle Ages, Jews basically took a very passive reaction to conversion or to encouraging people to get involved with Judaism, because the penalty on a Jewish community for having someone convert to Judaism was very major. In the Middle Ages, if someone left Christianity and converted to Judaism, the entire Jewish community would be punished. So therefore, someone came to you, like we talk about conversions, we always send someone away and so forth. Yeah, in the Middle Ages, you showed up and said, I want to convert. The converter says, please go back. It's okay. It's okay. Because we don't want to start getting killed because of this. So the truth is,
like a lot of things that were just left over. There's no actual reason. Like the reason we wear clothes like that is because, you know, in late 1800s, early 1900s, that's how Jews and that's how people in Poland and whatever dress, so we just keep it like that.
The Gemara says, it comes down like this. The Gemara says that if someone comes to convert, we discourage them.
Right.
But at the same point in time, when we discourage them,
when a girl chooses a boy, goy, then you encourage him to convert, because then you're going to lose 2 Jews.
Yeah, the fact is that really is a halachic problem.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's really a halachic problem. If you actually look in the halacha, if a Jew is going out with a non-Jew, there are actually halachic problems with converting the non-Jew. Okay, the fact is we do it because it's necessary in order to maintain Jewish identity in the future, Jewish role, and so forth and so forth. But the fact is that we're being much more practical nowadays in terms of saying, listen, we're gonna, someone is, you got to maintain Jewish identity and so forth and so forth. But the fact is, if you actually go back to halachic sources, if someone is involved in a relationship with a non-Jew, there are real halachic issues in the non-Jew being allowed to convert. Okay? The question is, do you question their motivation and so forth and so forth? The truth is that gets into a whole question of conversions. But the fact is that we want to verify that conversion is for the right reason.
Mm-hmm.
However, which is basically become part of the Am Nivchar, of the chosen people. However, at the same point in time, there actually is a mitzvah on Bezdin to convert. Okay, so the truth is if a non-Jew is actually someone who is properly motivated to convert, then you have an obligation to convert them. I mean, Bezdin has an obligation to convert them. In fact, it's a famous story of Timnah. Timnah is the mother of Amalek, right? And Timnah was someone who wanted to convert to Judaism. Okay, so the Medrash says she went to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. She wanted to convert, and they sent her away. And she basically said, I want to be involved with this family. And Timnah was a princess. She said, better to be a Pelegish to someone in this family than not to be associated with the family. She became the Pelegish of Eliphaz. Eliphaz was the son of Esau. So Timnah basically said, I so much want to be involved with this family because they're special. She was willing to give up her royal status to become a Pelegish to Eliphaz. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, because you did not accept Timnah as a Gyorus, whatever Gyorus meant there, because they rejected Timnah, I'm going to punish you, but her son is going to be your biggest enemy. So Amalek is a result of us not accepting someone who should have converted. Okay, so the truth is if someone comes to you and really is very much wants to convert, you have a mitzvah to convert them.
So in this day and age, because I know like without getting, okay, fine, I heard, so I've met people who are try the conversion process and they say it's very grueling. It's in Toronto. But if you're, let's say you're, because there's a big financial implication also. So if you literally say, listen, I'm penniless, but you show up to a shiurim, you knock it, you sleep outside the rabbi's door.
That there is an argument.
You're aggressive.
That the argument is that the idea is you have to verify that someone is converting for the right reasons. However, if a person really is properly motivated to convert, there's a mitzvah to convert them. So the point is, what?
The Bezdin to Bezdin?
Kodesh Baruch Hu did that. I mean, the fact is that's part of the issue. But the point is that the attitude that we reject converts, we push away converts, that attitude that we send them away emphatically, that really developed in the Middle Ages, where both in Christian countries and in Muslim countries, if you converted someone, if someone went from one of the major religions wanted to become Jewish, the negative effect on the Jewish people was major, right? The country would go crazy on them, and what?
Converting someone who doesn't have the means to be Jewish.
The fact is that's part of the process of conversion. The fact of the matter is that you're supposed to tell them it's not easy, and they have that option. But anyways, I don't want to get into conversion, but the reason I'm talking like this is that what we have is we have a history that is true, that we're not actively involved in missionary work. Okay? Jews were not heavily involved in missionary work. They for sure would not convert people at the point of the sword. Okay? The point is, though, is that if you go, but what?
They did historically.
There was only one case in history, if I remember correctly, that they actually did that historically.
So what does it mean when they went in with Yoshua?
That's the only thing. That we're talking post Tanakh. But in Tanakh, while they did not force people to become Jews, it basically, they gave them a choice: follow the Shevet Mitzvah Noach, get out, or we'll kill you. So the point is there does seem to be an aspect that within a Jewish perspective, we don't seem to have such tolerance. Okay, at least if you go back to what?
When we're on top.
At least if you go back to Chumash. So that was your point in terms of Chizkiyahu. The fact is, it seems that we have a source that says we weren't so tolerant. Now we look at this today, and we look at people like ISIS, and we say, hey, they're intolerant, they're autocratic, and we look, and people come back to us and say, yeah, well, your Bible's the same way. And the fact is that, so how do we respond to that? And in addition to that, there's a further question in terms of tolerance.
Right.
Tolerance is not just an idea where we're tolerant. Tolerance is a value. We live in a country that considers tolerance, the freedoms of this country, to be a value, and in many ways, we Jews share that value. I mean, one of the when we think about freedom of religion in Canada, we're not just thinking in terms of freedom of religion in Canada. Oh, it happens to be a nice thing because we're benefiting from it. We think it's a good value. We're proud of the fact that Israel has the freedoms, is democratic, and so forth. So the question exists is that if you have a Dati state, what do you do with all these freedoms? So there's people who say, yeah, we want a Dati state, but really not, because we want to keep these freedoms. So how do you reconcile this from a religious perspective? Okay, that's what we want to deal with. So you brought up the question of the scale. So the first question we want to deal with is Tanakh as a source. Okay, so if you look at Tanakh as a source, what big difference was there about Tanakh?
God. Well, everyone was basically religious. There was no...
Well, we're talking about they walked into the nations and they said, we're going to wipe you out. So it seems to be that we were not very tolerant.
God told them to do it.
Okay?
Yeah, so did Muslims.
So you're saying God told them to do it. Muslims are saying God told them. What's the difference? What's the difference? It's a very specific difference.
We were doing it for... No, it's the same idea.
Think about the situation that you're talking about in terms of Tanakh.
They were afraid of the influence of rebellion. That was really what it came down.
What was the world state in Tanakh?
Upheaval.
What was different about Tanakh?
Oh, they were majority.
No internet.
Oh. See, one of the problems that people have when we look at Jewish history, or we look at history, is you have to understand something, that there's two ways of looking at Tanakh. One is the way that Orthodox Judaism looks at Tanakh, and one is the way that people look at the Bible. Okay, we're going to make that distinction. If you're an Orthodox Jew, you have to have a certain vision of history that makes it qualitatively different than our world today, and therefore demands a perspective of it as a historical precedence for our behavior. And what would that be? What was the big difference about the Tanakh era than our era today?
Our era today, and the Tanakh, they had Nevi'im.
So one is Nevi'im. What else did you have?
They had a monarchy. They had unification of the Jewish people.
So they didn't have unification. They had the dichotomy between Yehuda and Yisrael. But furthermore, in terms of Nevi'im, what else did you have?
They were
Yehuda and Yisrael were like Sunni and Shiite.
What?
No. They had Sanhedrin, maybe.
They also had Nisim. So the fact is that it's an interesting perspective of looking at reality. The Greek view of reality, which is the dominant view of reality from the academic perception, and basically colors academic thought, and basically colors the way we think. I mean, we have to think that, from our thinking system, is that reality has maintained consistently the same over history. Okay? Mm-hmm. If gravity exists today, gravity existed yesterday. Right? That would seem to be the basis of any science and the basis of our understanding of the world and our perspective. So therefore, when we're thinking back to the psychology of human beings, or we're thinking back to the way human beings are, if we do make distinctions, like we say, the people, let's say, 500 years ago were let's say, not as tall as people today, we give scientific explanations for now. That's because they didn't have such nutrition, and so forth and so forth and so forth and so forth. But you all work things out through science. Okay? Fact is from a Jewish perspective, you have to accept that reality went through some major shifts, okay, between the Tanakh age and our age. And that's specifically in terms of God's intervention in the world. Okay? The Tanakh viewpoint is that there were Nisim, there were miracles, and there was Nevi'im, and there were prophets. And therefore, you had a different perspective. Okay? You had so what would be one of the major perspectives? One of the differences would be in the recognition of God. Right. Okay? So, how do you understand God? Okay? What does God mean? Or what does belief in God mean? Nowadays, we talk in terms of belief in God. Right? Because God doesn't do open miracles that makes it clear cut that this is what's happening. Right. Okay? Okay? So therefore, we understand that belief is an aspect of, that includes an aspect of doubt, right? That there is no absolute proof or God doesn't prove His existence every day, and therefore there's an aspect of belief. Therefore, the acceptance of God is a matter of a conscious decision that you have to reach at through analysis and some intuitive aspect and some idea that you come to that conclusion, but it is not definitely clear-cut. Okay? When Eliyahu Navi wanted to show Achav about God's existence, how did he do it?
With Bama.
What did he do?
He specifically used, he made it impossible for it to light and
right. So the fact is, on Eliyahu and Har Carmel, basically drenched the Bama with the place with water, and basically set out to Shemayim, okay, God, light my fire, and some ash came out of the heavens, and woof, there was fire. And then what did all the Jews do who said that? They all said, Hashem hu Elokim, which we say on Yom Kippur, right? Hashem hu Elokim, we got it straight, God is God, and we know this, right? Achav saw it as well, right? Achav, who's considered to be one of the top Rishayim in history, saw it as well. And what does he do? He goes home and tells his wife Izebel, okay? Izebel, you got to see what I saw, blank, 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 blank. What does Izebel do when this happens? What does she do? Okay? Izebel calls over one of her servants and writes a letter to Eliyahu, and because Eliyahu killed all the Nevi'ei Baal, all the priests of the Baal, and she sends a letter to said, yeah, if you're still around, I just want you to know, within 24 hours you're going to be in the same place that you put all my priests. Okay, and sends the messenger with this message to Eliyahu. Okay? Think about that. You say, well, did you not get the message? Your husband's telling you what happened. Okay? And it's like mind-boggling. Right? Now, the fact is over and over again, you lived in a different world existence. Now, this makes a difference in terms of Yeshua going into Eretz Yisrael. Okay? When the spies went to Yeshua, went in the time of Yeshua, there were spies who went to Yericho to check out Yericho. And that's where they met Rachav. Rachav was...
prostitute. The prostitute.
Okay, Rachav was the she ran the inn in town. Okay? Right, but she was person, and she saved the spies. And Rachav eventually, that's interesting. Rachav is a very chashuv woman, because Rachav eventually marries Yeshua. Rachav was Megayer, and she married Yeshua, so she has to be taken very seriously.
Yeah.
So Rachav comes, and what
isn't that also proof that you shouldn't be, like, in terms of the justice system, you shouldn't, like...
Yeah, that's all those issues.
It should have been married a prostitute.
So the fact of the matter is, okay, so you get into... Rachav was obviously a very special woman. The point is what does Rachav say to the spies? That's the key point. What did she say to the spies?
To save her and her family.
Yeah, but what does she say? Describing what they know about Eretz Yisrael. She says, we know about everything you did in Egypt 40 years ago. Okay? We know how you survived the desert. You have to remember, this is a nation of 2 million people traveling through the desert. Right? With the Anani HaKavod. I mean, from an Orthodox perspective, the Anani HaKavod is surrounding it. They're being fed by mud. They got a be'er following them around. Okay? Throughout the desert. They come to the border of Canaan and say, we're here. Here's the story. Get out, Polish of Mrs. Bnei Noach, or we're wiping you. And Rachav says, we know all this. We know who you guys are. So the fact is and what did the Canaanites do? What did the Shimmonim do? They fight. So the truth of the matter is you're talking about a reality. The story of Tanakh is talking about a reality which you on some level can't comprehend.
No.
So to use that reality as a basis for how we're supposed to act today is totally impossible. Because the fact is that we're not walking around based upon belief. They didn't walk around based upon belief. They didn't walk around saying, I believe this, therefore I'm going to kill that guy over there. They saw actual events. According to Tanakh, they saw actual events. If you don't want to believe that they saw actual events, that's fine, but don't accept the other stuff. But the fact is that don't say this and this. To understand the Torah perspective, you're talking about a different reality. So therefore, what Yoshua did with the Shiva Mamonim and what happened through the Tanakh in terms of the battle against Avodah Zarah during the years of Tanakh, we have to understand that in a certain way. Okay? Now, let's take it to the next step. The point is, what does that say about tolerance of our perspective today? So the fact is that if you look in terms of halachic perspective, okay, the truth is that there is a certain aspect of this recognition of truth that permeates the halacha. For someone to be punished in a Jewish court, okay, what do they need?
They need hasra.
They need hasra.
They need Eidim.
Need Eidim? Need hasra. And with hasra, what else do they need? Hasra being a warning. The two Eidim there has to be a warning to the guy and says, right, they say, listen, the Torah says you can't do that on Shabbos, and there's a death penalty for doing it. And what does the guy say?
I'm going to
Got
do
it.
it anyway.
Thanks.
No. He says, Afal Pikain.
Right.
I know this. So there's a Rosh that says something very, very powerful. Okay? The Rosh says, person's never killed for being Machal Shabbos. You never killed for violating Shabbos. What are you killed for? Why are you really killed for? Because if you want to be Machal Shabbos, you can avoid the death penalty by just never saying Afal Pikain. Right? You're doing your thing on Shabbos. You're being Machal Shabbos. Person comes and says you can't do that on Shabbos. You keep your mouth shut. Right? You don't do anything. You keep your mouth shut. Guess what? Court can't do anything. So the Rosh says you're not punished because you violated Shabbos. Why are you punished?
Because you don't care.
No, because you actually say Afal Pikain.
The system.
You said no. You said yeah. That's the point. If you want, you have to say I don't care. I know God said not to do it. I'm going to do it anyways.
It's not implied. It's you mamish have to say.
Right, because you're being. What are you being kafir to the Kodesh Baruch Hu?
I was going to go with jackass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. The fact is, if you want to get away with it, keep your mouth shut.
Right.
You're doing this. Keep your mouth shut. You want that ham sandwich? There's an issue on this, but the fact is, keep your mouth shut.
You can't be a real kofar.
What?
There's no real kofar today because they have to.
Nowadays,
so the fact
What's
is,
a kofar?
A heretic. You have to be someone who basically says, I know God told me not to do this,
but I'm doing it.
Blank you, whatever, right? And you're saying that to God. Now, this is where you get an interesting statement from the Rambam. Now, the truth is when it comes to law and order issues, so if you're about to kill someone, and you say, oh, I'm going to come, and the guy says, there's Hasra and so forth, and you say, keep my mouth shut, you can't do anything, and you kill him anyways. Rambam says, wait a second, okay? The truth is I can't execute you with the formal Beis Din, but there's a law and order consideration here.
Put you in a pit. I can beat you within an inch of your life.
I can throw you in. The Gemara says I can throw you into kippah, which is basically a jail where they serve you water and barley until your stomach explodes. But the point is the Rabbi says that when it comes to law and order, okay, the Beis Din had an informal power to do things for law and order, okay, things for law and order. But not for religious things, not because of Shabbos. Shabbos, you got off on a technicality, you walked home. Even Avodah Zarah, he says, even for Avodah Zarah. You were bowed down to that idol, the guy warned you and said you can't do that, and you kept your mouth shut. Even for Avodah Zarah, You walk out of the court.
If you visited a whorehouse or something, you would be.
You walk out. As long as it's for law and order. What?
It's Adam Lamakim versus Adam Lamakim.
It's anything for law and order. Now the truth is extension of law. Now the truth is that's also the best.
There's the whole influence idea of Adam Lamakim. Gedarim and.
The fact is you get into issues. You get into issues of what's necessary for law and order. Now the truth of the matter is you can also have this extension if it's going to totally break down society. So if you have it that these people are going to start doing things,
to who?
No, even in that argument there, you have a Gemara where I think Shimon ben Shetach killed a bunch of witches on the same day, which is Keneged Halacha, and he says it's Hara Shah. There's a certain koach and bezdin which is necessary for societal order, but the fact is, in normal law, if you say I don't know. I deny that God said to do this, you weren't held accountable.
So atheist is not...
So the fact is, in law and order situations, there's a matter like that. Now the truth is you have this statement, you have this idea from Tinnik, you have this idea of not responding to the trial. You have another issue called Tinnik Shenishba. Someone who is not held accountable because they were brought up a certain way or whatever. But the fact is if you look at this from a Jewish perspective, the cases you see in Tanakh was a reality that was a different reality, and therefore that works differently. But in certain way, in our world today, okay, to go up to someone and say, I believe, therefore I'm going to kill you, the fact of the matter is it's clearly not a Jewish concept. Now you can take it further.
Unless it's Malik.
Even with a Malik, you don't know who a Malik is.
But there were cases of people who did.
The fact of the matter is, if you get in terms of a Malik is not a. There's all these for a Malik is a yachid, or whether it's only against the nation in a milchama situation. The fact of the matter is that if you look in the chinuch, I think if you look in the chinuch, you'll say that a Malik. Let's just check it out. But I think it's a chinuch who makes a distinction between whether a Malik is only in question of it actually being milchama against the Amalek nation, not individual Amaleki. But the fact is that, though that's not so simple, but the point is, because there are the people who say you can kill it. If you know someone's an Amaleki right now, then you'd have to kill them, but you don't because there will be repercussions. But the point is what? That's all the repercussions. So the point is, but the fact of the matter is what you get to is that what we're looking at is the Jewish concepts when we're talking about absolute knowledge of God on one level, which is the world of the Tanakh, where Bechira is something that we'd have a very hard time understanding, because most of us think in terms of Bechira as an outcome of doubt. But our world of Bechira, or that world of Bechira, was based upon something that, I mean, you think in terms of Asaph. You think Asaph had any doubt about God? If you especially read Midrashim where there were angels in Avram's camp and so forth. Asaph knew Avram. I mean, like he was like 13 when Avram died. I mean, the fact of the matter is, you think Asaph says, "Gee, I doubt. I don't know." The fact of the matter is, we don't understand what that Bechira is about. Okay, that's the issue. But the point is that that's that whole world over there. But if you look in terms of our world, we basically see that the halacha has a whole perspective that says, listen, if you have doubt, then you are already have a way out of culpability. That does not mean if society that you have to break down a society. You have to do things to maintain society. It doesn't mean a total negation of the needs of society. But the fact is culpability basically says if you have doubt, then you may be not culpable. And that's where you have concepts that if you say, I don't agree, I say, you don't say Afal Pikein, which is a remarkably powerful statement, that you don't make an absolute statement of acceptance, but you have the concept of Tinnik Shenishba, that if you have someone who doesn't believe, already has a way of saying I don't believe, or the Tinei Shenishba is held not accountable because he wasn't brought up a certain way, and so forth. So the truth of the matter is from a Torah perspective, we understand doubt as an aspect of reality that leads to a certain understanding of allowance in terms of culpability. And that makes our impression different. Now it goes a little bit further than that. Fact is that there is an interesting Rashi in the Gemara Shabbos. There's a famous Gemara Shabbos about non-Jews that wanted to convert. Okay, the most famous one is a guy who says, teach me Torah on one foot, right? He went to Hillel, went to Shammai, went to Hillel, and so forth and so forth. There's 3 cases the Gemara gives like that. The guy who says, give me Torah on one foot. That's one case. Okay, went to Shammai gets rid of it. Hillel says, Haftarecha Kamocha, or don't do to your friend what done for yourself. And the fact is that he is Megayer. That's one case. So another case, a person, the non-Jew says, I want to be Megayer on the condition that I can become the Kohen Gadol. Okay? And Hillel agreed. Okay? Now, there's a whole bunch of questions. Does it mean Hillel agreed to Hillel actually converted him, or Hillel agreed to instruct him in conversion, whatever it is? But the fact of the matter is in the end the guy learns that he can't become Kohen Gadol, and he accepts that, and so forth and so forth. So he becomes that. Okay, and the Gemara ends up saying that the 3 Goyim meet each other one day, and they say how great Hillel was because of his responses. We were able to come under the company of Shechina. The third case is a fascinating case. The guy comes to Shammai and says, how many Torahs are there? Shammai says there's a Torah Shebechtav and Torah Shebal Peh. So the non-Jew says, I want to be Megayer on the condition that I only accept Torah Shebechtav. Shammai throws him out. Goes to Hillel and says, I want to be Megayer on the condition that I only accept Torah Shebechtav. Okay? Hillel says, language of the Gemara seems like Hillel was Megayer him, and says, now you gotta go learn the Aleph Beit. Okay, then he says he learns the Aleph Beit, so what he does is he teaches him, here's an Aleph, here's a Beit, here's a Gimel, here's a Dalet. Goes home and studies, come back the next day with his first lesson. He goes up to Hillel and says, this is an Aleph. Hillel says, no it isn't, it's a Taf. This is a base, no it isn't, it's a Shin. This is a Gimel, no it isn't, it's a Reish. So the guy says, but yesterday you taught me this all big Gimel. Now you teach me something different. So Hillel says, if you're going to believe what I say, believe me with this Torah Shebal Peh. What Hillel was basically saying is you can't have any education without an oral tradition, because you always have to have an oral statement. A person comes up to you, and I always want to do this. If a person comes up to you and wants to give you an argument and says, the Bible says, right, it's holy, you sit there and say, okay, how do you know it's holy? Right?
The Bible says.
Well, you can't say the book says it's holy.
It's a wonderfully recursive argument.
Right?
Recursive, it comes back on itself.
Right.
Does nothing.
Therefore you have to say that you accept an oral tradition. And therefore Hillel was saying this is what it has to be Torah Shebal Peh. There has to be an oral thing to support any written document. So the point is that the guy is the person came a kosher yid and so forth. So, but the simple seems to be that Hillel converted him while he still only believed in Torah Shebechtav without Torah Shebal Peh. So Rashi asks the question, how could he convert him? Because you can't convert someone who's kofer afilu b'davar echad, who denies one thing. Okay? You can't convert him. Okay? So Rashi says, and the language of Rashi is very interesting, it's looking inside, but it seems what Rashi says, it's not that he was kofer, it's not that he denied it, he just didn't believe it. So the absence of acceptance of the truth is not heresy. Okay? So the fact is if you are in a state of saying I don't know, okay, that is a state that says, okay, you have legitimate doubts. Now, legitimate doubts become something that does not put you outside the pale. It becomes part of reality. Now, the truth is, in a certain way, that's the basis of the Jewish attitude of freedom of religion. The freedom of religion really flows from the concept that you may have legitimate doubts. You may question. We don't have any problems with questioning. Okay? So the point is that in our world, in the absence of Nisim Negloyim, and the truth is, the Chazon Ish seems to say something somewhat similar, that there's no real Kofrim today because you don't have Nisim Negloyim. The fact is that the argument being that if you, without absolute proof, the fact is it becomes somewhat understanding for a person to say, I don't know. And I don't know becomes, something that you can work with. So from a Jewish perspective, you're talking about a Dati state.
Right.
The Dati state, a Bezdin, if it was going to be a Bezdin, would have to abide by the fact that you have to have Edom and Hasra. So the person, so if you're talking about Dati state, did the person to be culpable would have to say Afal Pikein.
Right.
The fact is that there have to be acceptance of Tinuk Shenishba. There would have to be an acceptance of the concept of legitimate doubt. And that's where you start getting into issues of freedom of religion. Mm-hmm. And therefore you get into aspects where you have to balance this out in terms of law and order. You have to balance this out in terms of the needs of society. Right? You can't let society break down totally just because you sit there and say, I'm going to allow people to have some level of a acceptance of doubt.
Right.
But at the same point in time, you also have to recognize that you're not going to be autocratic and immediately say, I'm right, you're wrong. Okay? Because the truth of the matter is that our world, the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu has created our world right now, there's no way of actually proving it that way.
Like enforcing it.
Right. So therefore, in a certain way, when you see things like ISIS or stuff like that, what you see are people who are basically so sure that they're right, to the extent that everyone else is wrong. And really, we have the understanding that, listen, there's a balancing of what we're saying. And that really influences the way we are, the way you have in terms of Torah scholarship. It's a basis in kiruv. It's a basis in terms of outreach. It's a basis. The fact is that you have a certain acceptance of the reality that we live in today.
Right.
Okay, and that acceptance means that you educate, you discuss, but the fact of the matter is that imposition is a flow of your own ego, right? Without the ability to really develop. Different in the time of Chizkiyahu, you had a Yoshiyahu walking around, or Yeshaya. That's right. Yeshaya was in the time. I mean, the fact of the matter is, Yeshaya and Chizkiyahu. I mean, actually, Yeshaya was killed. It was killed by Menashe. So the point is, but you had prophets.
That was his son. That was Menashe.
No, Menashe was his son. You're right. So therefore, he wasn't the time of Chizkiyahu. You're right. For some reason, I was thinking his father. Okay. The point of the matter is that this is a completely different world that we live in, and from the Torah perspective, it does recognize this world. The freedoms that we exist in today exists out of the reality of human beings going through the struggle of thought of dealing with the world as it is today.
So because of the open miracles and the prophecy, and it was so obvious, like, to everyone that Hashem existed and that everything. So therefore, they had the leniency to enforce
but we also what we don't understand about that is we can't understand their concept of bechira. I mean, the concept of bechira is so strange. I mean, there's a classic Gemara, a Gemara in Sanhedrin about Menashe,
he was being tortured by the Assyrians, right?
No, that's eventually what led him to do tshuva, but I think that's what eventually led him to do tshuva. But the Gemara says that he came in a dream, someone I forget, and Menashe asked him a halachic question. The person didn't know the answer, and Menashe said what happened was the person referred to him as a chaver, as a colleague, as a friend, and Menashe says, "Who are you to call me a colleague?" And he asked a halachic question. The person didn't know the answer, and Menashe says, "Here's the answer. Basically, don't talk to me as an equal." And the next thing, this person, I forget who it was, it's an Amar or Tanas, basically refers to him as the Rabbanim. And the fact is, Menashe seems to be that the way the dream seems to play is Menashe was a big Talmid Chacham, and the person asked the question, "You're such a big guy. How are you able to avodah zarah?" He said, "If you would have lived in my time, you would have lifted up your cloak to run to the base of avodah zarah." The fact is we don't understand the Bechira of that time, and the fact is we have a little bit of the inclination of the problem. And the fact is that when you talk about Pharaoh not giving in to the miracles, I mean, did he not get the message? So the point is, you have the fact that he
had magic all over the place.
Yes, they already ended the magic by the third thing. With the kingdom, they're not going to do the magic. So the next ones were that. So that's why they say that Kosh Baruch had to harden his heart because of all that magic and so forth. Because to allow him to keep saying no. But the truth is if you read the rest of the story, I mean, Amalek, right? According to if you read the text, this nation's going through the desert, a nane covered, manna coming down from heaven. Right, all these things happening. They just wipe out the most powerful nation in the world, and Amalek attacks them. I mean, did you not get the memo? I mean, the fact of the matter is that it seems to be like what are these people thinking? And the fact is that's what makes so much of Tanakh difficult from our perspective, given that world.
Right.
Okay? But if you don't have that world, which is the way biblical scholars want to read that, you want to sit there and just apply the same world that we have today.
Right.
Don't make the other derivations out of it.
But even within that world, like even if okay, so I guess so Mashiach comes and then everyone has the knowledge of Hashem. So then people will say, we'll do an Avera, and then they'll say, but they just won't say, I know better.
Who says there's going to be Averas in time of Mashiach?
Okay, well, let's say there's a situation where basically that people know, or there is a Jewish, there's a majority in Jewish, and the Jews are in power. So, but the whole point is, even when we're in power, the system is set up in a way that you can't be fully autocratic because there are so many loopholes.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
So what is with the deal with the Haredim then? And what is like...
The fact of the matter is the system is...
How do they have a halachic backing to do what they do?
Who said they have a halachic backing?
I'm sure I'm sure there's a run.
Throwing stones on Shabbos, there's no halachic backing for that.
They're taking a position that we want to have... What? They're taking positions that they want to uphold their understanding of the halacha.
For what they do and what they're trying to challenge, and how they're trying to make it.
The fact of the matter is that
the seat thing. This whole seat thing.
I can't defend that which I don't think is defensible. Okay, I'm not interested to say what some people want to do. My objective is not to defend what some person wants to. Thank you for your comment.
It felt like you wouldn't say it, so I just had to.
I'm just like we're here to study Torah. The fact that a person wants to sit there and think that they have a right to do something from a Torah perspective, let him defend his action from a Torah perspective. I don't have to defend his action when I can't understand what are you doing. Okay, you're going up to that person, and the fact is, what, you think you have a right to be autocratic and impose your religious viewpoints on another?
So there's no halakhic basis for establishing a halakhic state.
That's not true.
There's a halakhic basis to establish a halakhic state. The question is one of imposition.
Right.
Point is that I would like to have, if I want to make rules that say, listen, Israel shouldn't have pork farmers, pig farmers. Good, I get it passed by the government. You know, it's a big mistake that people don't understand in terms of the Haredim. The original argument of the Haredim was to protect the Orthodox, their understanding of the Orthodox. So their original argument was, hey, listen, you want to draft women into the army? Because, hey, do whatever you want. Just don't draft our women in the army because we don't want you to. So they argued freedom of religion. The original argument was freedom of religion. We should be able to practice our religious beliefs, which include not having women go into the army. That was their argument.
Right.
Okay? The fact of the matter is that freedom of religion is a two-edged sword. Yeah. Freedom of religion is I should be allowed to practice my religion without you imposing it. Now, you see the problems of this in the States with a lot of issues in terms of gay rights. Yeah. The point of the matter is that it's a battle between freedom of religion and other freedoms and stuff like that. And the point is one person saying freedom of religion should allow me to do A, another person says, but if you're allowed to do A, it's going to affect me this way. Yeah. So then you have to start balancing rights this way. But the fact is that those are legal issues. That's legitimate. But the fact is a difference between saying I'm going to impose my religious beliefs upon you. The point is that you look in terms of the argument over Obamacare in the States. So people are arguing that a person who does not want to extend health care in the States to include contraception. So the person is saying, freedom of religion, I should not have to pay for contraception when I don't believe in it. The other person says, but you are imposing your religion upon me because I want to have contraception. So the question is what is it? Is it basically saying, who's imposing, who's extending? But it becomes a real issue. And the fact is those are issues in terms of battles of rights. A lot of the Haredi issue is basically saying, I want to practice my religion. The point is that where does it become an imposition on others and so forth and so forth. But when you're talking in terms of imposition, when you walk into a bus and say, listen, all the women get in the back because I don't want to sit beside a woman. Well, if you don't want to sit beside a woman, don't come onto the bus. Right? There's a classic story of the Chasam Sofer. I think it's the Chasam Sofer. Someone asked the Chasam Sofer. I think it's the Chasam Sofer. They had train travel back in the Chasam Sofer. Someone asked the Chasam Sofer. He says, Kibbut Ava Aim is from the resources of the parents. The child does not have to pay to like when you have a mitzvah to bring food to your parents. It's from your parents buy food and you can bring them food. You don't have to spend your own money to buy them food. The truth is you do, and it's not so simple. But the fact of the matter is, but when we possibly Kibbut Ava Aim is Mishal Avi V'Imo. So someone came up to the Chasam Sofer, I think it was the Chasam Sofer, and said to him, listen, my parents live far away, and I have to take a train ride there, and the train ride costs money, so I don't have a chi of Kibbut Ava right out of my own money, so I guess I can't go visit them. And the Chasam Sofer said, you're absolutely correct. You have no chiyuv to pay for that train to go visit your parents. Start walking. That's what he says. So start walking. In other words, you're right. You have a chiyuv to visit your parents. You don't have to pay for it. Walk. So he says, oh, you want to ride? That's for your benefit. So that was the Chasam Sofer was saying. Now, the truth of it is, he was reading between the lines there. But the truth is that's part of the issue. The fact is that a person says, I don't want to sit beside a woman on the bus. Good, so walk. You have no chiyuv to be on the bus.
It's also not even that big.
What?
But not even that big. They actually could walk.
Right. But the fact is that becomes part of the issue. But the point is there's a difference in position and protecting rights. A lot of Haredi arguments is protecting their own rights. Right. And that their argument is under freedom of religion, protecting their own rights. I'm not taking sides on these arguments, because the arguments, but the fact is there's also a way of presenting it. There's a difference between the way of presenting it by saying, I'm right, you're wrong, versus this is what I think, you think a little bit differently, and so forth. I mean, there's a matter of the one of the things that always hits me, just to say how to deal with other people. There's a newspaper from Yeshiva College called Commentator, and they ran a series of a bunch of articles from people who knew Rabbi Yoshe Soloveitchik, who the Rav, and they wanted to give him perspectives on the Rav from different people and so forth and so forth. And one of the people they asked to write an article was a gentleman by the name of Eugene Borowitz. Eugene Borowitz was the leading Reform thinker of the time. Reform Rabbi Eugene Borowitz. He was like the major thinker in Reform Judaism at the time. And he was asked to write a something about the Rav, because he knew the Rav. And one of the ways he knew the Rav is the Rav sat on a certain committee with him under the New York Federation. And what Rabbi Borowitz speaks about in terms of the Rav's behavior towards him, he says, he was unbelievable. He says the Rav was an unbelievable man. And you're talking about a leading Reform rabbi. He was just talking about how the Rav greeted him, and the Rav was just tremendous. Just very. The fact of the matter is that tells you about a certain approach to things. And it comes about from a recognition, this is what I believe, and I have reasons for it, and so forth and so forth. But there's no nisim v'gloyim, and I'm not gonna, and back then, if you think about this, if you think about and Rachav's, basically you see from Rachav's statement about Yericho, he says all the people knew what happened in the desert. So what are you doing fighting? Are you crazy? Can't understand that. But the fact is, that's the aspect of a Torah perspective on it. It's extremely different than, you stand by your views, you present your views, you argue with them, and you take positions for legal and political reasons, whatever it is. But the fact is that you have respect for reality. You have respect from a halachic perspective of reality. Okay? Okay. Any questions?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Anyway, so the fact is that that's why this Chizkiyahu question is so important. You live in time of Chizkiyahu, it would be different.
So how would gay marriage fall under? Like, how would you deal with that? Like in the time of, I mean, we're still recording. So we were not record.
Back then, they were.
No, the fact is that no, you brought the listen. My
that's the most controversial thing I could think of, really.
It's not very controversial.
It's good we had this compared.
The fact is that you have to do is you have to understand to have a certain understanding of reality. You can't be imposing. You're taking a position. You want to maintain your position, but you have to do it in a respectful manner.
So there's maintaining your position. So there's not, you don't impose, but you don't actually have to accept either.
No, you're setting your position. But the fact of the matter is that you have to understand your position in the world, and then you have to argue it within the world.
So what would a Nazi state of Israel look like?
I don't know.
That's a good question, though.
Okay, I don't know what it'll look like, but the fact of the matter is that within a perspective of a Dati Yisrael, there would be certain freedoms from a Torah perspective, because the Torah does have concepts of freedoms. It does have a concept of freedom of religion in terms of what? In terms of what? Okay, in terms of freedom of religion, in terms of accepting the reality of doubt, stuff like that. Okay.